Hello snowboarders of the internet, I am your host TC and today I will be reviewing the Nitro Rambler. If you're interested in this binding or any other bindings that I mentioned in this video, make sure you're going down in that description and clicking those affiliate links. That way you don't have to go search in the internet yourself. I rode this binding at Arapahoe Basin where it was a crazy flat light day to start off the day pretty much, where I was seeing stars out there. I couldn't tell the definition from the ground to the sky. It was one of those things where it was like you're pretty much just riding based off of just pure feel out there. As the day went on, it did get better though, so I didn't have to deal with all of that quite as much. It stayed firm up top, got a little bit softer down low, but still never really got truly soft that day, where I pretty much was just kind of snowboarding on what felt like the moon, because once you got off that center groom strip, it was totally just untouched, just hard, crusty, just uneven terrain that was like, get me out of here, I don't want to be on this. But still a good day of snowboarding because I was using my Ride Fuse boots and my Jones Stratos snowboard. The adjustability on this binding is pretty standard, I would say, where on the Highback here, you just have a classic flip tab system, flip it, slide it down, flip it back. No need to twist that tab, you'll just end up snapping it off. I've seen it a million times, so don't do that and you'll be all good there. You can adjust this Highback as well to get that rotation in, depending on if you want that. I don't recommend it, but some of you guys like it, so you definitely can. You'll just loosen these screws all the way out and then you can just twist it back and forth. You have 3 different settings to choose from there. If you do need to move this heel cup, because just to pretty much get your boots centered over the board, I highly recommend you mount this thing first and then loosen these screws and you can slide back or push forward depending on what you need there. If you are going to adjust the ankle straps, which I highly recommend just because they're probably not going to fit your boots perfectly out of the box, it's just a classic flip tab system there. Nothing too crazy really. And then if you do need to, you want to rock this toe strap on top of the toe instead of over it, you can just push down, slide it back, pull back up, and you're already locked into that position. You can also micro adjust this stance because you are on a mini disc system. You can slide it sideways and really get that perfect width for you. And they did add a toe ramp on here, so if you need to, you can slide this thing out a little bit just so you don't get that pesky toe drag, but we all know that's a myth, so you shouldn't have to worry about that. The first thing you'll notice is these are both molded straps, so unlike those higher end bindings that are getting like a padded strap up top and a Vibram toe strap, this one's not going to be like that. It's going to be a little bit more bare bones, so just keep that in mind. This ankle strap, very soft laterally, so there's not much keeping in there, and there's also no padding, so whatever padding you do have is going to be coming from your boot. That being said, it is a pretty comfortable strap. Just don't rely on this thing to really lock you in. Heel toe response is there, but that lateral response is not going to be coming from this ankle strap whatsoever. The toe strap, it did fit my boot really well because it does stretch, it does kind of mold around your boot. You don't really have to worry about it just kind of flopping around on you. I had 0 issues. I rocked it over the toe, but you can rock it over or on top. Really doesn't matter there. Then the one thing that I really should say, just because I say it for every binding, I didn't have any problems with this thing just digging into my toe. Even though I do have a hard toe box, sometimes I get that last click syndrome where I'm like, even on the toe, this thing needs to be just ratcheted down as hard as possible. But I didn't have any problems with it, so they both are pretty comfortable. You're not getting any padding from either of them, but you know, they do their job pretty well. And I mean, if you're looking for something more responsive than this, you should definitely be looking at a different video because that's not who this binding is made for. The ratchets are solid on these bindings. They're pretty much the same ones that they use for everything else in the line, so they're nice and easy to get off, get in. Even if you have mittens on, even if you have like just full out just crazy Eskimo mittens that are just super thick, you don't have to worry about that. You could still get in and out of them nice and easy. The only gripe I have with these is they don't grip the first tooth of the ladder here. How you have this giant one, it just doesn't grip that. So I just had to kind of jam it in there so I could get it on the second or the third and then be able to ratchet it in. It's not a huge issue whatsoever. I wouldn't even call it really an issue, but especially for the person this binding is made for, that beginner, that lower level intermediate, they might want that to just catch a little bit sooner. But apart from that, they're super solid, easy to get in and out of. They do their job well. I didn't notice any wear on the ladders here, so they're all good to go there. That's the only problem I had, was with it just not catching on that first one. While I have you here, you might as well like, subscribe, click that bell, and turn on those notifications so you don't miss any of our scheduled programming. I actually really like the Highback on this binding. It does have some nice padding up top, so even if you do have a lower cut boot, you really aren't gonna feel it that much. And it's also pretty responsive, where as opposed to a lot of the more beginner-esque bindings where they have just a crazy soft Highback on them, this one really doesn't. It does provide a lot of the response that these straps are missing, so like laterally, it holds you really well, especially at this lower part, where on the outside it does kind of curve around more, so it grips the outside of your boot better, and it pretty much just gives you all of that support that this strap is missing on it. So you can, as I mentioned, you can adjust the forward lean, the rotation of the Highback, all that jazz. So they do give you that feature, or those features as well. It's just not going to be the most responsive, but it's also not going to be the loosest Highback. I would say this thing is actually great for these bindings, just because if they put on like a super loose Highback, these bindings would have zero response to them, and you're going to be working so much harder. So it is nice that they did add this to it, where it kind of makes up for having more play in the straps. So as I mentioned before, these straps do flex a lot. As you can see right now, I'm really not even working, and these things are just bending in my hand. But that's pretty much where it's gonna end there, where you got your Highback that's a little bit firmer, so it does have a nice response to it. And this chassis feels like it sits a little bit higher on my boot, so I felt like it kind of locked me in lower, but this binding still is gonna allow some flex to it. So you do have that small disc in there, so it's going to allow the board to flex nicely underneath your foot, but then with those straps up top, it still gives you some play, so you're not totally locked in and just anchored to this thing. You do get some lateral play to it, which I think is just enough lateral play for when you are learning. You can go side to side, really shift your weight around, figure out how to turn, where to initiate. But you're also going to have a little bit of response to it. So when you are progressing, getting a little better, figuring out where everything needs to go, you can still ride this thing and be able to have it hold you, where you're not just feeling totally loosey-goosey with it. So overall, it's going to be on that softer flex of things, but it still does have a pretty nice response to it, where it's still softer than the middle of the road, but you know, it is great for who it's made for. The longer I rode this binding, the more I felt how lively it was, because you don't have any padding underneath this binding. You only have it underneath the heel there on the bottom. It does dampen underneath that heel well, so when you're being a heel side hero, just learning how to snowboard, you spend a lot of time on your heel side. It does dampen that quite a bit, but when you go on your toe side, all of that, you're feeling everything. Like, it wasn't a bad thing, I would say though. Like in the morning, it was better to feel it than not, I would say, where going over that moon snow, that just super uneven stuff, you can't see the definition in it. I knew exactly what I was riding over and what I needed to do to not be just totally just tossed around out there. So it was good for that, especially for somebody learning. They're pretty much figuring out what you need to do on different kinds of snow. It is really good for that. If you're looking for something that's going to be crazy damp, you're not in the right video whatsoever. This binding is not for you. If you have bad knee problems, it's not going to go well. You're just going to feel everything. It's all going to be coming up through the board. So keep that in mind. But overall, it is great for who it's designed for. It cuts down on enough chatter to not just totally be just vibrating the fillings out of your mouth, but you do feel pretty much everything you are going over without getting all of that unnecessary vibration. Rider in mind, this binding is made for that beginner to intermediate rider that just kind of needs to save some money. They need a binding that's going to have molded straps and, you know, just pretty much get them out there, last for them, and just have all the customizability that you're looking for out of a modern day binding. If you're looking for another way to get involved in the Angry Snowboarder community, head on over to Angry Snowboarder VIP. What is it, you might ask? Sure, I could explain it here, but we have a great video over there getting into it really in depth. I thought this binding was good for who it's made for. If you get above that pretty much intermediate scale, you're not gonna like this thing. It is very lively. It kind of just does everything all right. I would say it's definitely made for that beginner rider that just needs something to get them out there, not really break the bank, and still have some of the features so you can progress into a better binding where you do have molded straps on this thing. You have a little bit firmer of a high back, so getting heel to toe is nice and responsive, but they just allow a little bit more lateral play to them. So that way you're not just totally just putting an edge down when you don't mean to, especially when you're torsionally flexing the board, because that is a weird feeling to a lot of people. So it is good for that, but you know, it's not made for me. It's not made for those more advanced riders that they need something with a few extra features in there, a little bit more dampening, that sort of thing. But definitely good for who it's made for, that beginner, that lower level intermediate. Comparable bindings: the Salomon EDB, the bent metal joint, and the Union STR. As always, guys, I've been your host TC, and this has been my review of the Nitro Rambler. If you're new to this whole snowboarding thing and you just need to do a little bit more research, why don't you go check out one of the videos for the comparable bindings, and that way you know you're getting something that's going to fit your needs and your riding style.